All right. Hello, hello. Cindy and Ram, I'm going to unmute you, if that's okay. Ram, Cindy, are you audible?
We are.
Okay.
You are audible.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we have another minute. So to anyone watching us on YouTube, please hold tight. We'll give another minute for everyone to jump in. Oh, I've got quite a few credentialed coaches, as well as uncredentialed, obviously, but it's interesting to see. Any EMCCs out there?
Soon to be.
Soon to be, awesome.
Soon to be master. Soon to be master. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
EMCC should be proud to have you.
Thanks, Ram.
Yes, Cindy, apparently I'm applying for EMCC, so that's going to be interesting.
Yes, you're applying for all.
All of them, yes, but all right. We are at the scheduled time to start, so we actually will start. Ram, as mentioned before, if there's anybody you see on the chat or attendees and you want me to pop on the panel, please let me know. But for now, I will say hello and welcome to our last public global webinar of 2019, which is both exciting and a little scary. Change is exciting, but I personally get a little nervous when big things happen, and whole decade changing over is making me a bit antsy. But anyway, we are here today. It's been a very exciting year for all of us, and at Coacharya we hit some interesting milestones, exciting milestones that I wanted to share with all of you. As most of you know, Coacharya started in India. That's where Ram is based. That's where Ram is from. And we are very grateful for the community in India that's helped us, get the company started and grow. And all of our initial coaches that we've trained were from India. But over the past few years, we've been more and more global. And it's quite exciting that for the past quarter or so since about September, when you look at our website visits, our webinar attendees, our newsletter readers, we are much more global than we are Indian. In fact, I was just checking our website before this webinar, and we are still 23% of our visitors are from India, but beyond that, everyone else is super global. And that doesn't mean we're losing people in India. It means that we're just growing overall. And that's exciting because it means that the things that we talk about, the things that we do, have an international appeal. And it means that our training programs are very truly global. In the cohorts that we have running right now and in the cohorts that we have coming up, there's people from India and from the US and from Europe, but they're incredibly diverse, incredibly balanced. So for us, that's really exciting because the more people that we have from different backgrounds, the more we all learn from each other and hear each other's perspectives. So that's great. So thank you very much, everyone, for supporting us all around the globe. We hope that we will see you back here on our first and second and all the webinars in 2020. But for now, let's wrap up the year with myths and realities of coaching with Ram, the person who started it all.
Okay, I also started, I think, the controversy about what is myth and what's reality. And I'd like to go into a little bit.
Let's do it.
Well, yeah, the more controversial, the better, I think. Coaches require challenges. As somebody in our colloquium pointed out, the worst thing that is happening is that everybody wants to stick to certain rigid, probably outdated modes of conduct and codes of conduct. Unfortunately, and I'm truly delighted, Cindy and I have been conducting a few webinars on the new ICF competencies. ICF has made some remarkably far-reaching changes, and I'm hoping that coaches overall everywhere understand what these are really about and then move towards that. So I don't want to sort of repeat what those competencies are about and how the old 11 competencies then reduced to 9 have become 8 and so on and so forth. That's not the point of this exercise today. But within that, what truly changes and what used to be the kind of coaching myths and what today is perhaps going to be the, as Otto Scharmer calls it, the emerging reality, the emerging future. Partly it'll be a dialogue between Cindy and I, but we would certainly invite any of you who have strong opinions about this. Ideally, I would like to have people who haven't been on the panel before with us. There have been many of you who've been here, and ideally, we would also like to have a diversity of people from different parts of the world. So just raise your hand, put your name in there, and Magda would invite you into this panel. So the first thing that I want to start with is when I went through not just the competencies, but the other day for some reason, somebody had asked me a question, one of the learners, and most of the time, my learning comes from the learners, not from teachers. It was a very curious, innocent kind of a question about something very basic about coaching. So I was surfing through the ICF website and I came across this treasure trove of frequently asked questions, which I had probably seen maybe a few years ago, but I haven't really gone there again. I usually go to something called the frequently asked questions in ethics, but there is another page. The unfortunate part of it is ICF is difficult to navigate and find what you want to find. So if I go back again, try to locate that FAQ, I might not be able to find it. I don't know. But what I found was extraordinarily interesting. And I sent it across to Magda and said, we must do something about this, pick up those things and talk a little bit more as to what ICF is trying to convey to people, communicate to people. One of the things that I noticed was that while the definition of coaching by ICF remains the same, it's still to do with how your communication is inspiring and so on, partnership, and it's leading to perform according to your potentials and so on and so forth. I still remember, I don't know, Cindy, for how long ago it was, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that there was a statement somewhere which said, the coach is not responsible for the outcome of the coaching sessions. And I always found it extremely difficult. It's just one sentence in passing, but unfortunately that influenced a lot of people into saying, oh, you know, it's not the coach's responsibility to make sure that the client reaches whatever the outcome the client has desired. And believe you me, I wish I had taken a screenshot of that at the point in time, but it certainly was there on the ICF website some years ago. But today, it's very, very different. It's very clearly something that is client-centric, both in terms of the individual coach, as well as the client, as well as the sponsor, saying that the coach's responsibility extends to helping the client achieve what the client wants to achieve, not only in the session, as per the markers and so on, but also in terms of the long-term goal. I mean, there are a number of about 5 or 6 factors which have been put out there. So, but I still find when I'm in discussion with people, and sometimes even in these webinars, or with even some MCC coaches who probably have been credentialed literally decades ago before I ever understood what coaching was, seeming to think that coaching is, well, I mean, we can do our best. What we are trying to do is something highly reflective, creating awareness, creating transformation, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's a client's responsibility to achieve what the client wants. I think it's a total myth. We're going to destroy the whole profession of coaching if we were to believe in that myth. I mean, we don't have to argue now whether it was there in the ICF website then or not, but I do see that there is some kind of a feeling amongst coaches. Yeah, we do our best. Ultimately, we can lead the horse to the water, but we cannot get the horse to drink. True, but you also have to think why a client would come back to you if the client is not able to achieve the outcome the client desires. Or an organization would come back to you if the organization is not able to achieve what it wants to achieve in addition to that of what the individual wants. And there is a lot of, following that, there is a lot of stuff about transformational coaching. I really don't understand that word, transformational coaching. If one is talking about, yes, we are looking into the mind of the client, we are making some shifts in terms of the perceptions, we are trying to do something which will allow that person to understand the beliefs that are limiting them, especially the unconscious beliefs and so on. Yes, certainly, that's an awareness creation process. But suddenly, all around me, I see everyone talks about transformational, mindful presence, and so on and so forth. Not that I disagree with them. All that is necessary, but we seem to be so carried away by these words rather than what they should really mean in terms of helping the client actually shift in their minds as well as in their behavior patterns. So are we really taking sufficient cognizance of this? Are we really doing something about this? These are some of the questions I would like to pose. Or are we still in a mode where we believe, okay, if what I do is transformational coaching, is that the way that I look at things? It's not about what the client wants that is important. Even if the client wants to be, let's say, advised, which is a horrible, what letter word, I don't know, 6-letter word in ICF vocabulary. And if that's what really the client wants, no, I'm not going to go anywhere in that space. And all that I am interested is really exploring into the client's mind and trying to figure out, even if the client doesn't want to be explored. I'm deliberately showing this up as an exaggeration. If you are going to be truly client-centric, whatever you may believe, I may believe, as this is the right way to coach. But if the client comes to us and say, hey, look, what I'm really looking at is I want to move from point A to point B, and I want to do it as quickly as I can. And if you're able to show me the way, that I'll work with you, which in typical ICF parlance or any other coaching parlance may mean mentoring. So is there a need for coaching to be also integrated with mentoring in some sense, which is what EMCC does, rather than separating them completely into two different zones? So these are some of the thoughts that I really would like to put forward to you. At the beginning of the year may be a better time to start with for all these, but probably I think the best time to do that is at the end of the year when we can get into a mode of self-reflection. Are we doing it right? Are we doing it differently from what the client wants? It may not even be right and wrong. It may be, is it really truly client-centric or it's not? I know many coaches who tell me that, I can only coach face-to-face. I can coach only individuals. I don't think coaching through Zoom or coaching through telephones or coaching through any other such media, they work. I don't believe it does. And secondly, I do not want to work with groups of people. Now, these are all sort of made out to be some kind of powerful, noble belief systems, that coaching face-to-face is what should be done, coaching virtually is not acceptable. And so in some cases, many clients, including L&D managers who I talk to, before they ever experience any kind of virtual coaching or virtual interaction, they make up their mind because of what some coaches have said, the only way that it'll work is face-to-face. But how much damage are we causing? The virtual mode of communication today is so advanced in technology that it's much cheaper, it's much more effective. Something like Zoom, Cindy and I have been experimenting with this for the last about 3 or 4 years, and we have found it to be amazing, far superior to face-to-face. And working with groups, whether it's in a training mode or in a coaching mode, is just as powerful, in fact, far more powerful overall to the institution. So when coaches carry these kind of beliefs within them, what I believe are truly their unconscious incompetencies, and they convince people, the whole system suffers. And one of the reasons we have been, Coacharya as a whole, and I personally, promoting, supporting systemic coaching is because more and more I find that individual coaching, and the way we keep talking about it as transformational coaching, doesn't really support the larger organization. It may support the individual, that's fine. Many people that I have had this transformative effect have left the companies that they worked for. Or some of them, when they went back into the company which hasn't had the privilege of having been coached like them, they went back to what they were doing in the past. They either regressed or they resigned. So how does it really help either that person who was coached by us or even the organization? So these are things which, more I think about it, I find are areas that we need to worry about more, then get into esoteric conversations about whether artificial intelligence is going to kill us or what's going to happen in some way that we can't understand about technology that is going to take coaching away. Maybe none of those will have any effect on us at all. We can easily adapt ourselves to it. This whole mind shift that we have in terms of what we think is the right way of coaching and everything else is the wrong way of coaching, can we open it up and say, hey, whatever the client wants, if I'm able to persuade the client is the right way to create awareness, that's fine. If I'm not, either work with the client or get out of the coaching chair. That's what I would say. Like I keep saying in this webinars, if you find the kitchen is hot, then don't come into cooking. Or if you find the water is not suitable for you, don't get into the shower. The same way as far as coaching is concerned, and don't blame other people. Anyhow, before I went into all this, I would like, Laurie has joined. Laurie, if you can just introduce yourself, you can start, and Cindy after that. If you could put my words into a little bit more of making sense to other people rather than the way in my passion, I come out strongly. Yeah. Laurie? Hello?
Laurie, you're on mute. Okay, while Laurie's setting herself up. Hi, everyone. Lovely to partner with you on our last webinar for 2019. I just want to check something. The very first point Ram made was quite an interesting one. And Magda, if you can, would you set up a poll, please? I want to know how many coaches think that we're not responsible for the outcome. Let's take a poll. There's quite a lovely number on the webinar today. I can see 98 people, which means there's over 100 with the panel.
So actually, Cindy, I don't know why, but Zoom is not letting me do a poll. So that, of course, happens. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We'll do it the long way. Coaches, write on the chat. How many of you believe that we are not responsible? We, meaning coaches, are not in any way responsible or attached to the outcome of our client. How many of you believe that? And while you are busy typing away there, I'll do some talking. Because when I think about it, many times after a session, I went home and the client played on my mind. And I thought about it. I thought about what was I doing in coaching? What could I have done better? What questions could I have asked differently? And the next time I met the client, I brought some of that in, right? So of course I was in a way attached to it. And I have a sense many of you go home and think about your clients. Or even if you're coaching virtually and you are in your home, you walk away from Zoom or however you are coaching, and you still continue thinking about your clients. Now, away from clients, we do that. I'm sure, Ram, you do that. I certainly do. When we are training or we are mentoring, we do think about the coaches, and we do think about the parts that they are either stuck in or they hit a stumbling block. And we wonder how we could help that particular coach. So, this idea of us remaining detached, I think, is a huge myth, because there's a lot of clients and a lot of coaches have taken up a lot of my space, heart space, head space, and I don't think I could detach from that. I don't mean it in a negative way. They've taken it up in a good way. What do you think, Ram?
Here is, yeah, you're right. I mean, each of us, as somebody had said here, we should not be attached and we should be responsible. I agree with that. Many of them say that we should be jointly responsible. Yes, but then the definition has to be extremely clear. Then in the case of the agreement, we have to very clearly define to the client, hey, this is what you should do. If we decide something mutually, co-creatively, in a particular session, and you need to take action on it, and if you don't, you are responsible for it. I can't do anything further than that, but I'll make every single effort that I can to do that. What I truly find it difficult to, I don't think many of the coaches today, the way we ourselves are training and various other people are training them, believe that coaches are not responsible. Many people here from outside of India may not know this. There was a great poet called Kabir way back in several centuries ago in India. And in one of his very famous poems, he has this particular sentence where he talks about a guru and his disciple, and I would interpret that as a coach and a coachee, as it were, or learner. He said, the coach knows his path and he will follow his path. The client will know his path and he will follow his path. And it's pretty much similar to what what's his name says in the book The Prophet. It's really, yes, these are two separate things, but each one of us is to know, rather than saying, yeah, we are mutually accountable, we are co-creative, we are all that, where is my client centricity? Where is my unconditional positive regard for the client? How far will it take me? And recently, Magda asked me to write an article on generative listening because there was a lot of confusion about that word. To me, generative visioning comes from a deep sense of compassion. It almost comes from a very, very deep space of love and compassion for the client. And you are able to put the client in a space where the client himself is unable to see the client. So the client is blocked by various things that are happening in the situation. But if you as a coach is able to perceive that client in that space, in that vision, where the client is all powerful, is able to break out all the barriers and be able to do that, how wonderful it'll be to help the client move forward. It may be possible that you do not achieve it, fine, but your intent is to achieve it. So this is what I'm looking for. So, I mean, in a much longer way, this is my perception of what it is about.
So from what I'm hearing from you and from what our coaches are saying on the chat, there are some things that the client journeys on their own, like the actions they take and how they work on it, and insights in a session, how they begin to develop and notice awareness in themselves that triggers off some kind of new learning and new insights in them. So some things a coach or a client walks that journey, and they still walk it with the coach, right? So around that, there is this huge detachment. I think it's more a myth, or I think as we're evolving as coaches, we're beginning to voice our opinions. That is actually much more an attachment than a detached one. I think what's changing, well, what I notice changing for me and a lot of coaches around me, is we're beginning to pay more and more attention to so-called rules of coaching and seeing what's working and what's not in reality. Because some things in reality are so different from where it's worded as a so-called rule or an ethical boundary or a competency marker, if you want to call it. So it's wonderful to notice that as we work with clients, how we ourselves as coaches are changing. But there's another myth we can talk about here, Ram. This is quite an interesting one. It's the myth of thinking that coaching is always attached, or the client is attached to some problem. So coaching is problem focused or remedial. You know, many people believe that coaching is there to address a problem or an issue. What do you think about that?
Yeah, okay, to an extent it is. To an extent it is, because, or maybe to a large extent it is. Whether you're dealing with an individual or a group of individuals, what they are interested in is overcoming something. And as I keep saying, coaching is about moving from point A to point B. And a point B is a solution, point A is the reality. So it is going to be solution oriented. It's going to be a problem solving exercise. But the difference is for the coach to understand that the problem is not going to be solved by the coach. The DNA of the coach is different from the DNA of the client. And therefore the client has to be able to resolve the problem, resolve the pain point, and find the solution for himself or herself. And all that the coach can really do in some senses, like Priya has said somewhere, it's about the process, yes. But you need to really believe in that process. 100% you have to believe in that process. And that process exists because we are client-centric. Not just to say, oh, you know, I tried competency 2 and competency 4 and competency 7. Oh, but there wasn't no effect. What can I do? Don't blame me. I'm sorry. You are to be blamed, because if you do not know how to integrate that and how to use that process to break through the client's point of view that the coach is going to support me in providing a solution, instead of really finding out what is that internal limiting belief which is holding the client back. So, I mean, those are the finer points of it. I think they emanate in some sense of the term as to, yes, we are not supposed to give advice, we are not supposed to give solution. True. But we are there to help a client find a solution. So what is really the difference between the two? In fact, I was very surprised. There was someone from Germany who was telling me about this. I think she did a program on our colloquium as well, solution-focused coaching. And it wasn't that the coach was offering solution, but the fact is that at the end of the conversation, at the end of the coaching journey, the client does reach a solution. And that's really the reason why the client is paying us. Otherwise, why would the client want to come? And it's not a coffee table conversation. It's not just to while away the time. They are paying us serious money, and therefore they are looking for a solution. The question is, how exactly are we going to help a client reach that solution?
But so coaching is there, yeah, mostly right now, problem focused or to solve issues. It's also an improvement, right? Because, you know, most highly successful people in the world use coaches, and they want to tweak the game from A to B. So it's also an improvement, or I think somebody on the call said it's an higher vision they want to create for themselves, or movement in a higher level of at work, a career jump. So it's also an improvement. There's a visionary connotation to it, or something I want to tweak or get better at.
Yeah, I mean, the word that you're using as improvement, I would use the word awareness. The client is stuck somewhere. The client is not able to find a solution. And in what way we are able to help the client understand what is it that is blocking the client, which is what we really do as coaches. And the better we do, the better we are in terms of mastering the competencies. Now, I think Vijay or someone has pointed out, yeah, it's a thin line. Sure, it's a thin line where you step in to provide a solution, but the other way, you keep outside of that line and be there and help the client to find their own solution. The latter one probably takes a little longer. It's probably a little more painful, but it's much more sustainable. It's much more longer lasting, and that's what we should do. That's what is being client-centric. But at the same time, the client should not lose hope or lose patience in saying, hey, what you're saying, it's not going the right way for me. I'm not able to get any of what you're saying. It's all right. You're trying to deep dive into my psychological space and all that stuff. But what I need is something much more urgent, something that much more tangible at this point in time. So the thin line is in terms of how do you manage these two together. And anyone who's been really into executive coaching deep enough would know that that thin line is pretty thin indeed, because the more senior the executive is, the less time they have for all these explorations. They need to have techniques, if we can afford to provide them that, which will allow them to introspect and be able to reach that point of the solution themselves. Or they need some prodding. They need to be a catalyst. It's many more of these things. They are all, I completely agree. They are all on the borderline of ambiguity. Which one is right, which one is wrong? I don't think there is a clarity in terms of what is right and what is wrong. And these are polarities again. So we need to find what is the best way that we can integrate into polarities. And anyway, this discussion is not really to provide any kind of solution as to what is right or wrong, what is good and bad, but help coaches truly reflect within themselves as to what are we doing, how client-centric are we, and where is it we can improve to be far more client-centric than we are. And those are some of the things that, we need to look at. Maybe there's something else that we can look at in terms of, by the way, Laurie.
I was going to ask Laurie to please hop on because she's unmuted. So let's sort of have a chance to talk as well.
Yeah, please. I'll call somebody else as well. Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to share some thoughts. I really appreciate that. I'm located in Canada, in the western part of Canada. British Columbia, so it's early morning here, but I've joined a few of these calls and they're just really quite thought-provoking, to say the least. So as I'm listening to the two of you talk, Ram and Cindy, I'm thinking, okay, when I jump in, which little nugget there am I going to latch onto? So I'm just going to offer something that popped into my head. And that is around this idea of kind of combining, are we responsible for the outcome? How client-centric are we? What do we offer when? And how do we work with clients so that their needs are being met? And what I guess my approach and what I always try to bear in mind is this idea of ego and remembering that I'm the sort of the instrument in a way, or the channel for learning for the client. So I happen to have trained myself up with some skills and experience to be able to do it in a professional way, but really I'm there not to be a great coach. And if you know what I mean, not from an ego perspective, I'm there to do the best I can to guide them where they want to go, to be really flexible around that, and to share that learning journey so that the outcome is of value. And the client, of course, will be the judge of that. And if I've done my job well, there will always be some good takeaway, but it isn't about me feeding my own ego to do a good job. It's about using what's at my disposal to help someone along their journey. And if part of that means offering advice or throwing in a suggestion or doing things that isn't rigidly as it has been through the ICF competencies, all the better, because it isn't a rigid journey. It has to jump around. So just to always keep in mind that I'm a sort of a channel for directing the learning. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's this ego thing that I try and take out of the equation for myself, so that it isn't about me, it's about the client. And I'm just there to help.
Laurie, something you said triggered off another big myth in me, or something that all coaches manage on a daily basis, or quite often. One of the things that we're managing in the profession of coaching, knowing that coaching is a fairly new profession, is that everybody calls themselves a coach.
Right.
Now, there's not much we can do about that, right? For it's just about everyone calling themselves a coach. But we can still discuss it, and we can have our opinions about it. So, coaches, if you can type on the chat, is everyone a coach, or what distinguishes the boundaries and makes us belong to the profession of coaching? What makes us a coach? Please, say your opinions or voice your views on the chat box. Yeah, I'd love to hear them. And we got two more that joined the panel. Is it Suman? Oh, I'm not going to pronounce
Suman Nair and Varadarajan. Yeah.
Okay, this is Varadarajan.
Yeah, please.
Good evening from my side and good morning from your side, because I'm from Chennai, India. I'm a trainer and a mentor. I have also been in touch with some world-renowned coaches, and I'm trying to understand the differences. And I've got some clarity through the discussion that we are having. I feel ultimately it's the trust between two people which actually drives the entire relationship. Now, it's all about relationship between a coach and a coachee. So if the relationship has to be maintained and built up, it takes some time. But towards the end of the thing, the coachee has to feel that the coach is able to deliver, if not the exact result, but at least towards that direction. Now, if the trust is built, then maybe we can help the coach to find the solution himself or herself. But to make the trust happen, we need to, as coaches, we need to see that the client sees that this person can get to the solution. If not exactly the solution, at least towards the solution. And that is what I feel as a coach. We are challenged as well as we need to work towards and maybe achieve it.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Suman, you have put in some questions or observations.
Yes, thank you very much. My question was about psychometrics, but I know that we're talking about something else, so I'll bring in my question later. Would you mind if I just share with you what I think about this? Yeah. I think, Ram, like you rightly said, there is a certain space that the leadership, especially senior leadership in the corporate world, look at coaching as a practice. So a lot of them want to know your perspective. Of course, they're not expecting a solution, but they want to really know. It's almost like saying it's lonely up there for senior leaders. And just to be able to say, hey, what do you think about this? And that's where I think, at least I experience some bit of a dilemma of what is it that I can share, because a perspective should not be taken as a solution, So this is my current journey. And if there's any thought around this, I'd really love to listen to and learn from all of you. Thank you.
Suman, this is probably one of the biggest thin lines that we need to be comfortable with. On the one hand, in whatever way, I mean, taking from what Varadarajan said, it's about a relationship, whoever you coach, It's not just going to be for 20 minutes or one session or whatever. It's a long relationship. Sometimes for many people, it's years long, decades long relationship. And in that relationship, there is certainly the space that the coach comes from is seen to be a superior space, whether the coach likes it or not. Like Laurie said, it's not my ego that drives it. But whatever, if what we say in some ways helps a person to become more aware and more conscious, and based on that, they start taking actions which lead them to the kind of outcomes that they want, they think that, look, these people know the answers, they provide the answers, they put you in a position always on a pedestal. And for many of us, it takes a lot to be able to stay away from that pedestal and to be able to even at times say, hey, I do not know. I really do not know. The question that I would like to ask all of you is, do we get there? How often do we get there? Or do we sort of, in some way, I'm not saying deliberately, but we are all humans. We all like being appreciated. Every single person likes being appreciated. And so that gets into our heads. And therefore, we become, in some ways, as many of you have observed here, that we should be solutioning, helping the client to solution, not be the solution providers, absolutely. But cross that line. And some of the other questions that I put on there, in some ways, reflect that as well. I mean, we all feel the need to let other people know that we are important. So believe you me, at least 50% of the coaches, when I meet them and I ask them, what kind of people do you coach? The first answer is always, I coach CEOs. The truth of the matter is, I have hardly coached any CEOs. I don't think CEOs really like to be coached. I find it very difficult to find CEOs who are willing to be coached. Maybe a few leaders, but by and large, I find it extremely enjoyable and valuable to coach young people who are young potentials, and I'm quite happy doing that. But if we believe that the only way that we can promote ourselves is by saying that we coach CEOs, that's one thing, which to me indicates a baggage that we are carrying. And that's what I meant in one of those questions. If we are carrying a baggage ourselves, how good can we be in clearing the baggage for the other person? When we ourselves are so full of this ego, and one of the biggest problems and pains that most leaders suffer from is that ego themselves. In what way are we going to be able to help them? I mean, these may seem like philosophical questions, and there are no sort of instant noodle answers for these. And that's why both Cindy and I are so happy that ICF has now put in this new CC2 called the coaching mindset, which is about creating awareness within the coach and being more vulnerable, being more sharing, being more open, and many things like that. Okay, I'll stop here. And Suman, I don't know, I know that I haven't answered all your questions, but basically, yes. How do you stay away from a judgment call on what would help somebody, but be able to make it sound, hey, look, this is what my experience is, but I don't have a clue whether this experience is going to be helpful for you in finding your own solution. Perhaps this is something, one with many others, that you can consider. This is what I usually tell them. I'm putting on my mentor's hat, I'm going to share some experiences with you, but don't for a moment believe that is likely to 100% work for you. It's up to you. So I don't know any other better way of doing it, to be honest. If some of you have a better way, I would like to learn. So that's a space we need to be in. And very often I end up by learning from the people that I coach. And I completely make it very open to them. I didn't know any of this before. I'm so happy to be learning from you what I'm learning from you. Rather than being in a space Yeah, I know everything that that there is to be known. Yeah, Gopal and Vijay Lakshmi. Yeah, please share your.
Okay, one minute.
Yeah.
Ram,
Yes.
just before they can share, coaches, I have a sense that all of you have come across many myths and realities during your coaching space. So won't you please type into the chat box what are myths or realities you have noticed?
And make sure you identify what is the myth and what is the reality, so we're not misinterpreting.
Please write. Exactly. Thanks, Magda. Please write myth,
And
reality, and please share.
so, and also the people who have raised their hand, just when you're ready to speak, please unmute yourself, because I've kept you on mute in the meantime.
Gopalji, please go ahead. Sorry, Gopal, please go ahead.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make 3 points, Ram. One is that, I am not worried about everybody calling themselves as coaches. Well, it's a competitive word, and I am also one of them. They are. It's a democratic country, democratic world. So let them say what they want to say. I would like to build on my USP. What is my specialty? I'll work on that. Second point I want to make is that, well, I would like, you said you will enjoy coaching the younger generation. I am with you on that. But I think simultaneously, we also need to, be very open to coach the CEO also, because they are the ones who actually set the, this culture of the organization. And if the organization is willing for the culture change, it trickles down from the top to the bottom. So unless these guys are also aligned toward the new ways of thinking, which the coach can really integrate with, I think we should be really open and not to be, I am with you on that, saying that I only would like to coach the CEOs. I don't care about that. I care about what is the behavior change this person is expecting himself. They are willing, they're open to transform themselves. Third point I want to make is that, in context with the CEOs only, that, these are the people who Marshall Goldsmith would like to say that, well, what got you here will not get you there. They are the people, because they have been successful, they are stuck there. They think there can't be any better way. They think that they are the ones who have achieved the success so far doing those certain things, and they don't need to change. And I think that's the best audience or best client that I would ever love to get. A person who's gives me a challenge and say, well, this is what I am, I can't change. I would love to really coach that kind of person, whether he's a CEO or is a junior. I don't care. So this is my summation, Ram. Thank you very much for the opportunity you gave me to speak. Appreciate.
Thank you, Gopal. Vijaya Lakshmi? You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'd like to build on the point that Ram made in terms of how do we help a leader who's not able to come up with a solution? Do we give a solution, or do we let them find from themselves? In my coaching journey, I've found that there are times when leaders are stuck, are not able to come up with solutions. And at such times, it helps if we can share another example from another coachee or something that we've personally undergone and found that it worked, primarily as an input to get them to think. I always find that with this little bit of information, the leader is able to come up with 3 or 4 more options. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's lovely, because you're just expanding and exploring a much more bigger pool of options, and it kind of trigger off more thinking in the client. So as we're reaching the end of our webinar with 5 minutes to go, and Magda, I'd like to check in with you. Do you need some time to make announcements?
No, Cindy, we have almost about another 12 minutes, according to my watch.
Okay.
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 Yeah, I don't need any more time at the end. I'll have an announcement with the password for CCEU. So please continue for as long as you want.
Okay. To anybody else on the panel, is there anything else you want to add or say, or any questions you have?
Yeah, Cindy, just from some of the stuff that is on the chat and also some of the conversations here, we all look at it from our perspective when we say that, whether experience and expertise adds to coaching someone better. It doesn't matter what we think. Many people who have very little experience as corporate experience, they are almost always bound to say that coaching is non-denominational. I mean, it's not about expertise and experience. Yeah, they are right. It's much more of a awareness creation space. But at the end of the day, the coach is not deciding about the client or the sponsor coming to them. Is a client or the sponsor, like what Rajan said about the USP, it's about what's your USP. And any CEO worth his salt or a CXO worth his salt, at least in my experience, maybe my experience is rather limited, they would like to have some people who have walked the space, who walked the talk, who've been there where they have been. And therefore, it's not purely about the stuckness being removed by creation of awareness, but the stuckness perhaps also being removed by a certain amount of light advice or light suggestions or whatever it may be. And that's a reality. We can keep denying it, that's fine. But at the end of the day, that denial is not necessarily going to get us more credibility, more visibility. Even amongst many coaches who are steeped in psychology and who are master coaches and so on, I find that many of them have used the fact that they have worked in corporates in some position or other. They understand how the corporate space works. And it's very difficult to talk about how a corporate space works unless you have been part of it, at least for some time or for a reasonable part of time. So very often the positions that we take are based on from what I see as a coach. I would love to take that space. It makes me feel so wonderful. But unfortunately, the client whom I'm pitching for may not like that spiel. The client wants to be understood. I think coaches need to develop the skill to be good marketeers in a positive sense. They need to understand what the pain points of the clients are. And this is something that I usually I find lacking in many of us when we first start as coaches. Some of us who have been corporate senior leaders, we are used to people listening to us. And so whatever we say other people should do, of course not. Why should they? They want you to listen to them. And second, if you are not used to the corporate space, if you're coming from a different space, you need to really understand what their problems are. So I just would like to, I don't want to dwell too deep on it, but these are some of the thoughts that occur to me that if we spend more time in debating within ourselves and perhaps then debate in smaller communities around us, that might be helpful. Yeah, Cindy.
Yeah. And something that's playing on my mind, Ram, and I think I'm going to raise it. So much we hear in coaching, because we're mentoring and it's for credentialing, we talk about what's the outcome for the session, or what does the client want to accomplish in the session. But in reality, in a real space, the client takes more than one session most of the time to get clarity on what they want out of the sessions that may follow. So the point I'm making is that it is not so easy, or not always easy, for clients to have clarity in 10 or 20 minutes to say, this is what I want from the session. What you mostly get is client talking and unpacking and until they feel ready to say, that's my goal, or that's the outcome, or that's a theme I want to work on?
Yeah, from here, one of the things that we can probably in the brief, maybe 5 minutes, it's not much time, but at least we can reflect on. Yeah, these are the myths and the realities, what we really would like to be. Personally, my own experience has been that in these many years, and we teach as part of the ethics, and we draw matrices and all that to show how coaching differentiates itself from counseling, from mentoring, from consulting, and so on and so forth, and certainly from therapy. Strangely, ironically, I find more and more, the more you are able to integrate all these and present it in a way that you are congruent for you, authentic for you, but at the same time valuable to the client, that's where we are going to provide them the maximum amount of service. Not by saying, oh, I'm going to take this stand. This is my stand as a coach. This is very different from the stand of a therapist who might go into the past, or a consultant who might offer solutions. Each extreme is bad completely. But is there something that we can put together? For those of you who may be unfamiliar with it, there's a guy called Edgar Schein. We keep talking about his book, The Humble Inquiry. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Edgar Schein is also one of the greatest masters of organizational development. He was trained by Kurt Lewin. He himself has been the mentor of people like Peter Senge, Otto Scharmer, and others in MIT. One of the books that Edgar Schein has written about is consulting through coaching, or coaching through consulting. I don't remember what the word is. You should really read that book. How something that we see as completely two separate spaces, for many of us who are so left brain and cognitive that we cannot see how these two can ever come together. There is this master who's a coach, OD specialist, one of the most respected learning strategists in the world today. Edgar Schein says, how can you integrate coaching and consulting? So when we start looking at it, there are many, Carl Rogers, for example, integrated counseling and coaching. I'm not saying they are the same. I'm not saying they always should be the same, but there are aspects of each which will add tremendous value. Similarly, NLP and Gestalt and TA and all these add tremendous value to us as coaches. To look at them as therapeutic practices is, to my mind, pretty foolish. It's really trying to destroy ourselves. I don't want to learn about it because it doesn't agree with me for whatever reason. So I think we need to be more open. That's all I would like to leave. Coaches should leave themselves to be more open, more of learners. There's so much to learn. Every day I wake up, I don't know much. I really don't know much. So each day it's about learning more and trying to help other people with that learning. So let's see if there is anything else that is coming up here.
Absolutely. One of the best places to be: open, agile, flexible, so that we can receive and work with our clients in the best possible way. Coaches, anything else you want to contribute to? Any questions you want to raise? And just in case you don't know how to save the chat, if you click on the chat box, and you will see at the end of the screen on your right-hand side, there's 3 dots, little dots. If you click on that, you can see save chat and save it to yourself.
So I'm actually going to post the questions and myths that are in the chat. I'm going to put them on our forum, which would be great if everyone else could actually participate as well. I'll add the link for those of you who haven't been there, but it's just forum.coacharya.com. It's public, please tell your friends. But I think there's a lot to unpack here. And what I would love to do is I'm going to collate these, get both Cindy and Ram, and I'll comment on some of them as well, and also do maybe a video or a blog post addressing some of these myths, because there's just a lot for 1 hour in here.
Yeah, it was quite a big topic.
Yeah. And
I love the topic.
you might like to sort of use this somewhere. Pradeep's Natarajan's comment: coaching is indulging in your passion that also pays. I completely agree with you, Pradeep. Whether it pays or not, it doesn't matter. As long as you indulge in your passion and it fulfills you in some way, it'll eventually pay, because you'll be good at it in any event. Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah, but there were some questions also around actually getting paid. Is coaching expensive? So there's some really good questions in here that we can actually address in our business of coaching webinar. So I really, really encourage everyone to go on the forum and give your feedback and comments on these myths, because I think there's material in here for us to discuss in the various different forums where, you know, everyone can share their voice.
Okay, you've passed on the password, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, is there anything that Ram and Cindy, you want to share first to wrap up the topic, and then I'll get the admin stuff out of the way?
No. Yeah, you can carry on with the admin as far as I'm concerned.
I will carry on. Okay, so forum, please come to the forum. We'd really appreciate it, and also want to learn from you. The CCEU, I will post the link. It's learn.coacharya.com, but I'm going to post the link directly to today's session right now. So go to the chat right now. The password is Artemis. Why is it Artemis? Because I thought today we're talking about myths. So all the various choices are some of my favorite Greek goddesses. And Artemis is my sister's favorite Greek goddess. And she was pretty cool. So look up her achievements. It was feisty. So Artemis. Please pay attention, because every week I get tons of emails asking what the password was. I'm not going to answer all of them, guys. Pay attention to the webinar. Artemis. All right, a couple other announcements. Ram and Cindy, who you have seen interact with each other today, they are starting a new mastery cohort. We do a new mastery program every single year, starts the last Monday of January. So any of you who are PCC coaches who are thinking about doing your MCC in the near-ish future, joining that program with Ram and Cindy is a great way to get started on that. So please email us, either contact@coacharya.com or magda@coacharya.com, and I'll make sure that you get information. That's starting the 27th of January. And for any of you who don't have a credential yet, but you have 20 years experience or more, and you've done coaching in some other capacity, we are also allowing admittance of people who don't have credentials in that mastery program, provided that you do have that experience you're bringing to that cohort. And last but not least, for those of you who don't have 20 years working experience, but want to get your credential, we also have 2 or maybe even 3 coach training programs starting in the second week of February. So you can also join those and get your either ACC or PCC or EMCC or board certified coach credential. We have a whole bunch of credentials to choose from. So I think that's it for the admin. Please join us again in 2020. There'll be lots of webinars coming from the first Wednesday of the month. Go to coacharya.com/events for the ones that have been confirmed. For those of you in India, we have a really exciting program with Peter Hawkins, who most of you would have seen somewhere, including our webinars. Peter is coming to Mumbai for a 3-day special training sponsored by us. So take a look at our website as well. That's going to be really, really cool. I think that's all I have. Ram, anything else you want to add? Cindy?
Absolutely, that's all. And we would like to see more and more of the audience in the panel
yes.
in 2020. Thank you very much indeed. And
yeah, I've asked quite a few of you, and you all said, no, not today. So as someone who frequently has a makeup and hair things holding her back, it's okay. Today I'm ready. Other times I'm not. Even if you're not ready, join us next time.
Or be ready.
Or be ready.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Bye,
I'm very happy New Year.
Everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New
and a
Year.
great holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you all. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.